Hi, thanks for being in a new video. I've had the opportunity to test the Realme GT6 before its official launch. It promises to be a flagship killer, so let's test its performance in this video. Let's get started. Obviously, to be a flagship killer in terms of performance, it is necessary to have a good processor, and in this case they have chosen the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, a processor that could also be called Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 Lite, since it incorporates the same distribution of cores as the standard model. That is, it has a huge Cortex-X4 core, which is the most powerful. But it also has 3 Cortex-A 720 cores for moderately demanding tasks, and 3 Cortex-A 520 cores for simple tasks. Remember that this processor has been built by TSMC in a 4nm process, so it's modern, and that's why it also supports ray tracing, which is an important element for gaming graphics, but join me in running some tests on it. So let's run an Antutu test with this device. In this case, I activated the GT mode, which is the one that would give it the maximum possible power. Let's wait and come back when the result is ready. And that's it. Here's the score. 1,628,741 points. That's definitely an exaggeratedly high score. Realme officially shares that this device is capable of up to 1.65 million, although obviously that can vary depending on the weather and other factors. But in addition, there are some features that I would like to highlight to you. For example, it comes with a gaming-specific RAM option that you can turn on or off depending on your taste. But I think this is something that gamers could really enjoy, because if you turn this option on, games could be kept in RAM so that the next time you run them, they will open much faster. So it can be quite useful. Note, for example, that in this case, I have all the apps closed, and now we're going to open PUBG. Let's see how fast it gets to open. Although obviously the more you use the cell phone, the more it's going to learn, and it's likely that over time it's going to get even better at opening these games even faster. And while the game opens, I want you to notice that in this part we have this quick settings panel where we can find a power saving mode, a balanced mode, or a GT mode. So you have decided to name Realme this very high performance mode that will give a lot of power to the device to achieve a very high performance. In fact, he also notes that it has a game focus mode that will prevent any kind of distraction while you are playing. But something that is also very interesting and that I had not seen to date in devices of this style, note that when you turn it on, it will let you modify the processor performance. Specifically, you can manage the clusters of different cores. For example, the smallest core by default runs at 1.2 GHz, but you can overclock it and select that you want it to run at 2 GHz. Then manually you can manage all of this. The same thing will happen with the mid-level core cluster. And of course also the single core cluster, which is the most powerful. Note that by default it's set to 2.2 GHz, but you can force it up to 3 GHz. In fact, you can also change the GPU frequency. So all of these settings manually, I hadn't seen that you could manipulate them on other devices, and it also highlights the incorporation of these features in this device. Obviously, you'll also have some other tools such as artificial intelligence eye care, touch response optimization so that the screen can respond with even greater speed. And also here is the quick launch option so that the game is kept in cache and the next time you run it will be much faster. In this case, I'm also going to activate the system status monitor because we're going to do a test, highlighting that this is the first device to support PUBG with a frequency of 120 frames per second. In this case, this would be the graphics settings, and note that this ultra extreme frame rate option is enabled. And in this case, you can still configure whether you want to go up to 120 or not. So let's do a test by playing for a long time with this device. But let me bring a stopwatch so you can see how long I'm going to play. So, we're going to start this game, and please keep watching the frame rate per second throughout the entire run. We're going to play for 30 minutes, so let's start this process. Notice that at this point it's already at 119 frames per second, give or take. So we're going to put this in fast motion, and we're going to constantly have the frames per second display in large size so you can notice it. That's it. Well, I was 7 minutes short of completing half an hour, but I lost a little early. Still, look, I made it to the number 7 spot. Not bad for someone who doesn't play games. Let's measure the baseline temperature just so you can see after almost half an hour, about 23 minutes playing. And I think still the device is maintaining a good temperature considering it was running at 120 frames per second or very close to 120. Pretty much a very close average, so it's pretty good on power. Now I want you to look at the difference between having 60 frames per second and 120. Although I don't know if through the camera you're going to get to distinguish this difference, but you do get to notice it in real life. I think if I put a scene in slow motion, you will be able to notice it more clearly. And by the way, this phone is also the first in the industry to support 1.5K resolution in Henshin Impact, so it would be able to show you a higher level of detail compared to, say, what another device would give you. There is no doubt that it does fit the title of flagship killer. This performance is also achieved thanks to its cooling. In this case, it has a total of 9 layers of different cooling materials. The first is a huge copper foil of 10,870 square millimeters on the screen. The second is 7,075 millimeters of superconducting graphite in the display compartment. The third is a dual vapor chamber with the largest surface area in the segment at 10,014 square millimeters. To give you an idea, it is 2 or even 3 times bigger than other phones. The fourth layer has cooling gel, and the fifth layer is a copper and graphite foil on top of the 1,420 square millimeters base plate. The sixth layer is the printed circuit board, and the seventh is another 800 square millimeter copper foil. The eighth is a 5,300 square millimeter press plate support made of graphite. And finally, the ninth layer is an AL metal support. This in conjunction with 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM and 512 gigabytes of overclocked 4.0 UFS storage achieve exaggeratedly high performance. And well, remember that this device will be presented on June 20th and they will have their live stream. Soon I will tell you more details about this device, but for now this has been all for this first video at a glimpse of its performance. I hope you liked it. If you did, you know you can tell me about it, and I'll see you next time.